you so much for that super warm welcome. And yeah, like I came in this morning and I was just feeling super pumped and super excited. And now I'm feeling really softened. I've just been like cuddling everyone all morning, and yeah, I'm just super, super pumped to be here. So thank you. Surrounded by friends and family and a room full of creative strangers. It's totally my jam. Yeah, so let's get started. So as Brenton mentioned, a number of you may already know me through Creative Mornings or through creative connections in the Brisbane community. But I suspect only a few of you know that these two words are my favorite in the English language to speak, hear, read, and wear. So if you're at the back, I have this exact phrase in this exact font tattooed on my arm. So it's a phrase that to me personally raises a mixture of excitement, both recognition and mystery, and a sense of connection. But what it symbolizes to me is not just an embracing of the unknown, but a welcoming of it. It is opening the door to one's curious nature, willing to embrace all that is on the other side. So with that in mind, let's take a moment to just really pause here and appreciate the sheer largity of this global theme for Creative Mornings this month, curiosity. It's basically the motherlode of all CM themes, as curiosity itself is so crucial to the practice of creativity. It's what gives life to creativity. Any form of creative practice stems from pure exploration. And what I really want to touch on in my talk today is how we can view curiosity as an art form and explore ways to develop it as a constant practice in life. Ever since I was young, my dad, seated in front of me, just here, this guy, used to say to me, the richest person is the one that knows who they are, where they come from, and where they're going. Now, I can't pinpoint the very first time my dad said this to me, but it was in the early stages of my childhood. And it was a concept he would continue to share with me throughout my life. Curiosity is such a core part of my nature, something I live and breathe every day. And while it's something that I've personally cultivated as a practice over time, I do believe its seed was first planted when my dad first spoke these words to me. My dad was where I learned to nourish my sense of wonder. I have countless memories of being out in the world together, or even at home in the backyard, and watching as he would observe the smallest details in everyday life and meet them with fascination and joy. As it was, I unknowingly became quite fixed on this phrase he had shared with me, specifically the knowing who you are. And so began my personal journey in the art of curiosity. What did it mean to know who I was? What did that look like? And also, why was this the starting point of creating richness and one of such importance? So I set about trying to find the answers. Interestingly, it seems common that we confuse where we come from and where we're going with who we are. A similar idea being that often when we meet someone for the first time and we want to get to know who they are, we ask them what they do. They'll likely proceed to share what their day-to-day of work looks like. Maybe details about a partner or children, and if you dig deep enough, perhaps even their siblings or what their home life was like growing up. I find childhood foundations particularly fascinating, but while all these facets contribute to a life, they aren't who we are at our core. Now, I am by no means a religious person. I do not practice any form of religion, but I've always identified strongly with the concept of spirituality. A common idea in many spiritual texts is that at our deepest level, at our most connected, we know who we are. But our task is to remember who that self is and remind others of their own. My process of remembering very closely mirrored the act of creating. So as I began creating the kind of person I wanted to be, I was frequently met with the feeling of recognition. The aha moments. The sense of, this is it. And you could liken this to creating a piece of work where you intuitively know this feels right. This speaks to and of me. And so, who is Emilie Guillemain? I am first and foremost a lover of life, of experience, of exploration, of love itself, and of stories. I am a storyteller. I have always been fascinated by stories because I am fascinated by people. Human nature, behavior, all the intricate little details that make a person who they are. I am an explorer, obsessed with anything that aids in personal growth. My greatest passion is discovering the self and discovering others. And I live and love in a way where I want to experience the full richness of what it means to be alive. I feel very blessed to be genuinely living a life I love, surrounded by people who inspire and challenge me. I feel connected to myself at the deepest level, highly intuitive about my wants and needs. But all of this is no accident. It came from a place of cultivating curiosity on the daily, and most importantly, welcoming what I found rather than judging or criticizing it. Oh wow, that's super tiny. Okay, well I'm gonna go through it anyway, so. I'll go through it first, just for you guys at the back. So this here says curiosity of the self leads to curiosity of the external, leads to empathy, leads to connection. But I'm gonna go through it now as well. So this is something that I discovered over time. And through this practice of digging deep, of cultivating curiosity, I was able to, I thought it was great actually, Brenton, that you used the words peel back the layers. I was like, did he read my speech already? Where is he getting that? That's great. Yeah, I was able to peel back the layers of the self and see what things really drove me. What spoke to me and inspired me to keep creating, both on a personal level and in my life at large. And this curious nature just began to flood into everything around me. I wanted to know people, really know them, and open my mind to their perspectives on life and how they chose to show up in the world. But most importantly, focusing on the why behind these ways of being. As much as possible, I would treat my discoveries of others the same way as I would my own, free of judgment. Knowing that the only possible way to understand their perspectives was if I could really hear them without my own beliefs getting in the way. Over time, this led to a fierce capacity for empathy, having created so many spaces for others to share themselves freely, and accepting points of difference as an opportunity to learn rather than contest. So many of these genuine exchanges led to the greatest gift of all, connection. Just gonna have a little sip of water here. So, connection is the end game. In work, in play, in relationships, in life. Arguably, it's why we're here. In time, I understood that if I was to connect at the deepest levels in these areas, it all started with me, with a curiosity and discovery of the self. But what does that actually mean? What does it look like? And how does one enact it? Let me start by saying that there is no one way. So my own journey of self-discovery is going to look very different to yours and everyone else in this room. But there is one commonality that can be found in every journey. And it just so happens to be a theme that has been mentioned a number of times in Creative Mornings Brisbane talks. And that is of mindfulness. And for a really good reason. So the practice of mindfulness is such a relevant and important practice, directly correlating to curiosity. These days, the idea of mindfulness is so frequently linked with meditation. And whilst I can fully attest to the benefits of meditation personally as a tool for mindfulness, practicing the art of curiosity is a foolproof way to get there. When we become curious about our experience, it completely transforms our response to what is happening. So, some examples here to play with, questions that you might tend to ask yourself, would be, why did that statement make me feel X? Why do I love the particular flavors in this dish? What do they remind me of? What is it like when I find my flow in drawing, writing, photographing? How does it feel? Where and through what other practices might I obtain that same feeling? So the key here isn't to overanalyze, but to ask freely, the way a child does when their curiosity is piqued. And when the answers arise, even those that may bring discomfort, treat them kindly. It's often the smaller, more detailed questions that help aid in a gradual peeling back of the layers of the self, rather than the bigger, what do I want to do with my life? What kind of job do I want to be working in 3 years' time kinds of questions. Cultivating curiosity is planting the seed for personal growth. And self-discovery is a process that is ever unfolding. It's not something to be rushed, but it is something to take joy and fascination in. So, My professional background lies within the field of journalism and writing. I studied a Bachelor of Journalism at QUT, and these were really the early, really formative years of getting to know who is Emilie Guillemain. Who did I want to become? This period was the beginning of me forging my career, but the question of who you are was such an intrinsic focus for me that this time was largely about asking all of those personal questions, letting my curiosity really take over, and creating Emilie Guillemain. I took my first couple of solo trips overseas, and while these experiences cracked my world open in such tremendous ways, I learned that my hunger for self-discovery could be fed no matter where I was in the world, so long as I remained curious. After returning from home from my third solo adventure to India in 2014, I did what most young creatives in Brisbane do. I moved to Melbourne. Yeah, I know. So most of us have had plenty of conversations about why this move is a tricky one, how balancing the need to sustain and encourage talent within our incredible city is crucial to the growth of our creative communities, but whilst also leaving room for us to venture off and do what we need to do to explore and grow on an individual level as well. But I moved to Melbourne on the hunt for more experience in writing for online publications that I loved. I sought out Broadsheet before I left home, a media brand covering art, culture, food, entertainment, and design. I had been wanting to work with the publication throughout my time at uni and secured an internship before I took flight. I would go on to spend just under 2 years in Melbourne, having worked for both Broadsheet and later the Urban List as a full-time writer during my time there. A few months after returning home to Brisbane, I landed a position with sustainability print magazine Peppermint as part of their editorial team. Each of these experiences was so important to my growth as a writer, and they are periods I look back on very fondly. But I was yet to discover what was really meant for me and the kind of storytelling I really wanted to explore. So, as the end of 2016 neared, I was wrought with tension in both my personal and professional life, but could not foresee the amount of pain and destruction that lay ahead when I lost the person closest to me in November. As someone typically quite joyful and so engaged in my everyday, this loss had me turn away from the world in a way I never had before. It frightened the people close to me as I spent days barely moving from my bed, barely uttering a word. Occasionally, I would drag my feet to the bathroom. My eyes are swollen and my face is just drained of color. And I would lift my shirt in front of the mirror to check to see if there was an open wound on my chest. My heart was literally in pain from so much stress and terror. And in the same period, I left my job at Peppermint. I had so much love for this incredible team and was incredibly grateful for the time I had spent there. but it was no longer right for me, and I was experiencing an even greater loss that was hindering my capacity to show up and really give my all. In the following weeks, I began to move a little slowly with each day. So my steps were small, but I did what I needed to do to take care of myself. Being by big bodies of water proved to be the best remedy. So trips to the city's pools and walks by the river. And in my mind, the sorts of questions that I would ask myself were sort of along the lines of, what are you feeling emotionally? Name it. Can you feel it in your body? Where? Do you want to walk to the water today? No? Okay, well, why is that? Okay. So everything had been stripped away at this point, but my curiosity remained. And it was that feeling of, hello stranger, hello old friend. This was the tool that led me back to myself at a speed I am still in awe of today. And as my friends and family watched me move, and some later asked how I was able to so quickly after having just been through deep trauma, I would say to them, I did the work. Years before experiencing this loss, I dug and dug and dug a little deeper still and worked to know the insides of my soul. I know who I am, and while this does not in any way lessen the pain that was experienced, I am always here beneath that pain. I am never lost. At the beginning of 2017, I had several friends reaching out to me, suggesting I should start writing a blog to share some of my experiences. Though I'd been writing personal journals for years and articles for publications, I never really sought to create one. So I ended up writing a post in January, which I would later continue to quietly badger myself about having not continued posting. And that's how blogs work, right? You're supposed to keep posting. That's the idea. But as a dear friend, Sandy, I'm looking at you, Sandy said to me, maybe that was it. You wrote what you wrote, and you said all you needed to say. And God, it was just like a breath of fresh air and just totally releasing any self-critique that was going on in that moment. Thank you. So, in that post where I spoke of the immense pain I had experienced, and surprisingly the sheer joy that would soon follow, I made mention of a quote by American writer Frederick Buechner. So I would really love it. I want to share this quote with you, but I would love it if you could all just gently close your eyes down, and I'm going to read it to you. He said, "Listen to your life. See it for the fathomless mystery it is. In the boredom and pain of it, no less than in the excitement and gladness. Touch, taste, smell your way to the holy hidden heart of it. Because in the last analysis, all moments are key moments, and life itself is grace." So can we just take a little moment there to pause and appreciate the sheer beauty and simplicity of these words? This was a quote that I had found months prior to my loss, but as a testament to how I moved through this heavy period, was one I returned to at the time, beaming with understanding, recognition, and just a resounding yes in my heart. Taking it all in my stride, still bursts of painful tears, but also moments of sincere joy and laughter. 2017 became a year of me exploring alternative modes of storytelling. I intuitively wanted a break from writing. We've all been there. So grinding at our form of creativity over and over until we eventually get sick of it and occasionally have these moments. Brenton. Like, it's real. And more importantly, it's okay. It's okay to step away for a time. And actually, illustrator and designer at the design conference last year, Lauren Holmes said it. She said, it's okay to play. I knew then and still know now that writing would always be a part of my life. But as it was, my curiosity was taking me elsewhere. As mentioned earlier, I am the Instagram storyteller for Creative Mornings Brisbane, though today it's Tyler. What's up? And this all came about after I approached our CM host, JC, to do this for the event each month. And at the time, the tool of Instagram stories was still quite new. So our team was using it, but I wanted to do more. What if, rather than just capturing the speaker and the venue and our supporters, we actually went and spoke to audience members, captured and shared what they had to say? We'd cover anything from answers to icebreakers, which we don't have today. But maybe this is something that you can discuss with each other later. So usually we have an icebreaker that poses a question related to the theme. And the one that I posed forward for today was, what last sparked your curiosity? So it could be anything. It could be super small, super big, whatever. But yeah, maybe have a think and share that with each other a bit later. So we'd cover icebreakers, inspiring takeaways from the talks, or even moments that hit them hard during speakers' presentations. What was challenging to hear? Did it encourage new perspectives or an insight to create personal change? I'm aware of the irony right now of talking about capturing the speaker and takeaways. But my goals here were to capture the flavour and value that Creative Mornings brought each month, provide insight into the event for those that may not be able to attend, and provide opportunities for viewers and attendees alike to connect and perhaps even collaborate. It's since been received really well, and I've had people say to me that even if they weren't able to make it to an event, they felt as though they had been there. Just by tuning into these seemingly tiny, fleeting 15-second social media posts. I quickly realized I was onto something and proceeded to reach out to other businesses to provide this as a service. So I went on to work for the design conference last year and Peppermint Magazine's Pep Talks. I was edging closer to the kind of storytelling I really wanted to create, but it wasn't until just before my 4th solo trip overseas last year when the idea came knocking. So enter, alongside, a journey in the art of curiosity. For as long as I can remember, whenever people have asked me what my favourite part of the writing process was, my answer was always the interview. the conversation and time shared together. So alongside is my latest venture in storytelling, a project where I live alongside my favourite artists for certain periods at a time. And via a series of conversations, shared meals, rituals, adventures, laughs, cries, I use this time to share their stories with the world. My pursuit of this kind of work is at first a total immersion of myself into the lives of a series of creatives I so greatly admire, to understand how they live, work, and play, but also to dig deep and represent each artist as the artist and each artist as the human. So just a few days ago, I left the home of my first alongside artist and dear friend of mine, Nabil Sabio Azadi. And I've lost my place. But so Nabil and I met 5 years ago after I'd reached out to him online in response to one of his works, a book called For You, the Traveller, which is a hand-bound guide to the world and was released in a limited number of 200 copies worldwide. This magical book was filled with little glimpses into people Nabil had met from all walks of life over the years, and hand-drawn maps by Nabil himself of where they lived, and a contact for each person. The idea was that these people would open their doors to those who came passing through their hometowns, bearing the book, to share their time and space with them and connect. Now, I'm sure you can imagine how this work of art really spoke to me. So I contacted Nabil immediately, and we organised to meet just 2 weeks later at an exhibition he was holding in Wynn Lane. Nabil, I've always described our meeting as a couple of old souls meeting again on the path. And this, of course, meant that it was just an instant friendship and a re-meeting of hearts. So Nabil and I spent the last 4 months living together, and it has been such a pleasure to see the depth at which he creates. While in this case there was already a shared closeness between us, this period of living in such close proximity took our conversations further each day and amounted to so much insight into who he is as an artist, but also who he is at his core. As a practicing author, illustrator, photographer, and painter, my time with Nabil was also filled with the reflection of past works as he moves towards his new piece, For You, an exercise book for life. As I prepare for the next chapter of Alongside, I'm also preparing for my next chapter in a grander sense, because in just over a week from now, I'm actually moving to Sydney this time. I love you, Brisbane, but exciting things ahead. So, as a few of you may already know, I currently work part-time for coastal living brand Assembly Label in their Fortitude Valley store. But I will now be stepping into their new role of marketing coordinator in their head office down south. A long-time lover of this incredible brand, it was always my dream that I would one day have the opportunity to create content for them in line with their values of supporting local artists and creatives through storytelling, product collaborations, and events. It's such an honor to be coming on board into this new role, where I will have the means to really drive these values for Assembly moving forward by connecting, working with, and supporting artists. And I feel blessed that my own intentions for Alongside have married so well with all that this will involve. So we're going back to this really tiny slide. As I wrap things up today, what I hope you can walk away with is the understanding that curiosity is a practice and an art form, but most importantly, that it's accessible to all of us. We were made to stay open, and curiosity conquers fear. What happens when we become curious about our experiences, especially those that bring discomfort, is growth. It's the saying and embracing of hello stranger. It's the asking, what can I learn from this? In your work, in your art, in your relationships and exchanges with others. And it's remembering that this pathway to connection starts with your own journey of the self. So just one last time, I'm gonna ask you to gently close your eyes down. And I'm gonna leave you with a quote by my favorite author, Anais Nin. She said, "And the day came where the risk to remain tight in a bud was greater than the risk it took to blossom." Thank you.